Everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. Okay, I think this is the slide that's also going to get some people interested. It's slide 14 of this Aptera Motors investor presentation. And in here, you see the sticker price for the 40 kilowatt hour vehicle. It is basically $39,000, and then it increases slowly to $39,500 and then $40,000. Now, so people are going to think, oh, this is now the decided on price for the Aptera. It was like $35,000 and now it's $39,000. Now, the important thing to understand here is this little superscript of 1 where it says pricing of vehicle subject to change. And so I spoke to some people at Aptera, and they told me that this is a number that's completely in flux. So we should not take this as the price of the Aptera. And in all likelihood, this price is going to drop. It's less likely to go up than it is to drop. So the more likely scenario is that this price is going to drop. This price is based on the cost of the bill of materials, which is shown here. And what we know is that battery prices have been dropping steadily for the past several months. And more importantly for Aptera, when they get a price target from their suppliers, because Aptera is not really producing a vehicle right now, the suppliers don't consider Aptera to be that serious, and they basically highball them. And they highball them a number. And so the more serious Aptera looks, the better pricing they get from their suppliers, which makes sense. And so he told me that basically this bill of materials number was much higher 6 months ago than it is now. So it has been dropping steadily for the past 6 months, and it is most likely going to continue to drop. So shouldn't get too worked up and feel like this is the actual price. This is a price that they're putting in, and this is the price based on their bill of materials, which is about 6 weeks old when they made this slide for U.S. Capital Group. The other interesting thing that we want to look at is this. This has some more information. It has the Vitesco Technologies as drive change, which we've mentioned before. And interestingly, we see Yazaki is still on here. So previously in the June update, Yazaki was not on here. So we wondered, is Yazaki not involved? Well, Yazaki is still involved. And then the batteries looks like they've moved to Panasonic. Now remember, like several years ago, they penned an agreement with Eve Energy, and Eve Energy was going to be their supplier. But basically, as we heard from Tim, their battery pack is basically supplier naive. They can go, these 21700 cells are basically commodity products. There's some small differences, but they can work with Eve Energy, Samsung cells, Panasonic cells, LG cells. You know, like there's multiple suppliers that they can use. And it looks like perhaps they have penned an agreement with Panasonic. This, of course, if they get a better supply agreement from another supplier, they're probably going to go with them. So this is in flux. So I think people shouldn't get too worked up about like these suppliers changing. That's kind of the nature of the thing. Things are in flux. They're going to go with whoever gives them the best price and the best deal and has the best product that fit for them. But so we see that they've changed from Eve Energy to Panasonic. Then the other thing I kind of was interested in is this Herscher Automotive Innovative Glass Solutions. So it looks, you know, based on solution, you would think that this is their glass supplier for their like windshield and things like that and their windows. And maybe they are, but they specifically saying solar. And I think what's important is they need a very, very strong glass that's very, very thin to work in their solar solutions. And so that's something like, you know, Gorilla Glass. So Gorilla Glass is very thin. We use it in all our phones. And Gorilla Glass is basically a kind of tempered glass. And it's a lot of it's based on this Prince Rupert's drops, which if you guys ever heard of this, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of this. It's very, very interesting. What they do is this glass is very, very strong. It's very impact resistant, does not shatter. You can hit it with a hammer like this, and it does not shatter. And this is basically an example of thermally hardened glass. But if you put stress on the tail there, it instantly shatters. And the way that this works is you have to, the way you make these Prince Rupert drops is you heat up glass over a flame until it starts melting. And then when it melts, you drop it into water, and then it basically forms these little drops with its tail. This part of the drop is extremely strong, and the tail is extremely weak. And the way this thing works is the glass, because of the way that it's molten and it's dropped and rapidly cooled, the surface of the glass is under tremendous compressive stress, and the core of the drop is under tension. So this differential makes the glass very, very strong. And that's essentially what Corning does with Gorilla Glass. And what Corning does with Gorilla Glass is they use something called a potassium sodium ion exchange bath, where they basically stick sodium ions in the surface and displace the potassium ions, and it makes the surface of the glass under a lot of compressive stress, similar to the Prince Rupert drops. Now, this Herscher Automotive Glass Solutions, they've been around since 1899, and they're doing this lightweight glazing construction with aluminum silicate, which is, Gorilla Glass is just the trade name for this kind of chemically strengthened glass. And if you look at Herscher Automotive, that's what they're doing. They have this aluminum silicate glass, extra thin, outstanding optical and light transmission features. They're doing chemical tempering by ion exchange. So they're essentially doing the same thing. I suspect that Corning is too big of a company and they weren't interested. That Herscher is more willing to work with them. But this is not a startup company. They've been around for a long time. They've been around since the 1890s. And so that is they're not in any risk of like going belly up or anything like that. And they have this technology where they can bend glass very, very specifically, which I think will be very useful for Aptera and their bent solar lamination. So that is what's interesting about this. The other stuff we kind of knew about, we know about Cherry Automotive. They're now, we know that they're supplying like the air handler and things like that. Body and exterior, obviously CPC. Monroe Associates doing like design and manufacturing consulting. Co-Stamp Group is another Italian group. They're doing the chassis. This is a lighting group. And then CTNS, again, they're not making the batteries for the PI builds. They are making the supply line, the manufacturing line. And so they're going to make the manufacturing line in Korea. They're going to test it, build a few packs, and then they're going to ship the entire manufacturing line to San Diego. And then they're going to just recapitulate the assembly line. So CTNS is not building the battery per se. They're building the assembly line to make the battery, if that makes sense. And then Maxion, of course, they're having some financial issues lately, but they're a big company. They have extremely good technology. They're a big player. Someone's going to buy them out if for some reason they're under stress. So I don't suspect a big problem there. Yazaki, obviously, one of the largest wiring harness manufacturers in the world. They supply all the big automotive manufacturers. So they're stable. Panasonic, obviously, huge, and Roush Performance. They're doing more design and manufacturing services. So they're not really a supplier. But very interesting. But I just wanted to make sure that people understand that this number right here, this 39,000, that is subject to change. It could go up, it could go down, but in all likelihood, as Aptera builds more vehicles, gets better funding, and looks like they're more serious, the suppliers take them more seriously. They kind of highball them. I don't know if that's a word, but they basically come in high, and then as they see that they're more serious and that they could be missing out on business, they give them more and more competitive bids. And then overall, the battery side is just industry-wide getting cheaper and cheaper. So that's good. The other things are going up, somewhat because of inflation. We know that inflation's been a thing, so labor costs are higher and things like that. But overall, the suppliers are coming with lower and lower bids, and that's going to make their bill of materials lower, and then they can offer the vehicle for a lower price. So you see, if the bill of materials is about $30,000, they are planning on making $9,000 worth of profit per vehicle, which seems pretty high, actually. I don't know that Aptera needs to make that high of a profit margin. Initially, the cost of goods is going to be very, very high. because the initial production runs are going to be smaller production runs, and each part's going to be more expensive. So they're going to be losing money per vehicle. But then eventually it's going to get down to this, and then you're going to see that they're going to have a profit of $10,000 per vehicle, which is like a 25% profit margin. I don't know what the normal profit margins in the vehicle industry is, but 25% seems extremely high. As an investor, I kind of want them to have a high profit margin, but I think if they want to be more competitive and want more vehicles out there, maybe they should accept a smaller profit margin. But currently, that seems to be what their financial plan is to have like a 25% profit margin. I think they're going to think that through and decide, because their goal, as they've said repeatedly, is to have like millions of vehicles out there. They're not out to make 50,000 vehicles out there. They want millions of vehicles out there. And in order to, if you have millions of vehicles, you don't need to make $10,000 per million vehicle. You can make $1,000 per million vehicle, and that's still $1 billion profit. So that's pretty good. So if they want high volume, I think you can work on smaller margins. If you're more boutique, you need bigger margins to keep the whole operation afloat. So that's something they're looking into. But anyways, this price is subject to change. It is most likely going down, less likely going up. But we're not going to know the price of the vehicle until production actually starts. And we'll talk about that in another video coming up. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.